Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk a little bit about hip functionality. Specifically, we want to talk about hip internal rotation. You'll remember from last time, we talked about how to get appropriate functional hip internal rotation, that doesn't just happen at the hip itself, it also happens at the pelvis, specifically at the ilium. And so one of the things we're looking at here is when we want to restore hip internal rotation at both the hip and the ilium, you can see how as that hip internally rotates at the ilium, we also get posterior expansion at the pelvic outlet. So that space there at the pelvic outlet needs to open up on that side if we want to restore hip internal rotation. The other thing is when we're restoring hip internal rotation, a lot of times it's necessary to do that before we begin a return to athletics. So for instance, if you want to come out of a cut, so if you're going into a cut and then trying to come out of it, you're going to need a lot of ability to internally rotate at the hip that you're going into before you come out of that cut and begin heading back the other direction. So we'll want to address both of those things. Let's use two exercises to do that. Okay, for the first exercise, again, we want to mimic going into a cut. We want to begin to prepare the ilium, the hip, and the tailbone for going into that internal rotation position. So for that first exercise, I have a kettlebell here, and we're simply going to do a single arm deadlift with an offset stance. So in this position here, I'm going to work on my left hip. So I'm going to take my left leg and I'm going to go back about half a step. So my toes on my left side are in line with the heel of the right foot. I'm going to reach down, grab that with my opposite hand. I'm focused on the left hip, so I'm going to focus on the right hand. Weight is in the right hand. Now I'm going to send my hips straight back as I go down into a deadlift, offset deadlift, and in this position, I'm going to breathe in. Really important that you breathe in at the bottom of the deadlift. In through the nose, long, slow, and silent. That's going to create posterior expansion in the area that we need to move. Breathe in, exhale, come up, head back down, touch the kettlebell. Most of my weight is through my left side. Breathe in, exhale, come up. One more time. Send that left hip back. Breathe in at the bottom. Exhale. Okay, so now we have prepared that hip for loading, for going into and coming out of a cut. We've worked on our mobility, so let's go into the next exercise. For the second exercise, we've prepared the hip. We have better awareness through the hip. We have more posterior expansion through the pelvic outlet. The ilium, the left side of the pelvis, has now begun to internally rotate. We've recaptured some internal rotation through the left hip. So now we're going to be a little more aggressive with this. You may want to start something like this. Maybe if you're just coming off of an injury. Also, this is a great way to get started if we're not quite ready for something more ballistic like jumping and landing yet. So we're going to get a lot more internal rotation. There's going to be a lot more force through that hip, but we're still grounded, so we're still in a much more safe position. So this is just a 10-pound medicine ball. You don't need a medicine ball wall. It's nice to have something to throw against and catch. But if you're at home and you just have some weights, some dumbbells, some kettlebells, you can do the same thing with those. So what we'll do is we're still working on that left hip. We want to work on landing. We want to work on coming out of a cut. So to mimic that, we're going to start with 10 pounds. We're going to go over the right shoulder, and then we're simply going to drop the right leg back quickly down into a half lunge, and we're going to bring the weight down to the left hip. So it just looks like this. Exhale on the way down. Back up. So you can see this is going to mimic landing. This is going to mimic coming out of a cut. But it's much more safe because we're not actually jumping and landing. And this is a much more controlled position to be in when we're trying to recover function, maybe after an injury. Hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, and we will see you here again soon.